morning at 8:05, we're going to be joined by James Rosen of Fox News, and this time not to talk about Paul McCartney or the Beatles, although somehow I think he will work his Paul McCartney impression.
He almost always does.
Yes, and I'm hoping we'll get a Brian Wilson impression from him, too. You have not lived until you have heard James Rosen do his Brian Wilson impersonation.
Maybe we could pass on that.
I am Larry O'Connor, alongside the aforementioned Brian Wilson.
I want to talk about the D.C. mayor's race. You know, we are just days away from the D.C. mayor's race, which is what we call the April Fool's primary, because in the District of Columbia, traditionally, you know, the person who wins the Democratic primary, it pretty much becomes the mayor, although that might be different this time in that David Catania will be in the race as an independent in November. So whoever wins the Democratic primary still has another race ahead of them. And we're hoping to hear from Jack Evans, who is scheduled to be on the program this morning. Jack Evans, you know, the interesting thing about Jack Evans, longest serving member of the D.C. Council. You know, he has a reputation. Been on the council since 1991. Straight shooter, lawyer, economic degree from Wharton. In fact, he's on the line right now. Jack Evans joins us. I was just going through your resume. You've been with the council longer than anybody's ever served on the council, since 1991. You're a lawyer, got a Wharton degree in economics. You have a pretty good reputation in this town. We know you care deeply about the district. Why is it, Councilman, that you feel like the numbers have not really looked as if your campaign is gaining traction?
Well, you know, there's a lot of undecided voters and a lot of people who just haven't focused on the election, even though it's in 5 days. And so what our goal is over the next 5 days to get our message out, campaign in every ward in the city, and try and convince people that in this election, as you mentioned, I have the most experience in running this government, that in this election it's critical to elect someone who can run the government and has a vision for the city. And the whole thing of the press trying to make this a two-person race between Mayor Gray and anti-Mayor Gray, I think is foolhardy. And so that's what we're going to try and do in the next 4 days.
Well, Councilmember Evans, I got to say, I mean, when we had you on last, I can tell you I tried really hard to make this a two-person race between you and Jack Evans, between you and Mayor Gray, but you wouldn't take the bait. You have not been very critical of Mayor Gray, especially considering all of the revelations about the shadow campaign. And I got to ask, I mean, how are you supposed to make the case that Mayor Gray does not deserve 4 more years unless you're willing to go after him?
Well, I think I tried to run a campaign that was very much focused on why I should be mayor, why Mayor Gray should not be mayor. And my opponents haven't done that. They've attacked the mayor and said we should be mayor because he shouldn't be. And I think in politics in our country, you know, the press criticizes this negativity, and yet when you have a candidate who stays positive, stays on his message, you criticize him for not being negative. And I find that to be kind of bizarre. But my point is this. I would be the best mayor for the District of Columbia of all the candidates. I hope the voters, 95% of who have not yet voted, keep that in mind when they go to the polls. We really need someone who can bring this city together and who can run this city, and that would be me.
Let me just explore this thing a little bit further. Have you had conversations with the current mayor, Mayor Gray, about how you're going to conduct your campaign? Did you say, look, I won't attack you if you don't attack me?
No, we had no conversations like that at all. And again, it wasn't a strategy. It was just the approach I took of trying to run a very positive campaign and setting forth why I would be the best mayor for the District of Columbia.
Well, when
I spent a lot of time attacking Muriel or Tommy either. I mean, my point is, vote for me because I know what I'm doing and can run the city.
All right. Well, what did you think when the mayor said this?
Frankly, if it wasn't me, and it ought to be me, we're working hard to be able to make that happen on Tuesday, so I will continue to move this city forward. Jack Evans is the person who has the most experience.
And I agree with the mayor.
Did the mayor just endorse you?
I agree with the mayor. You see, there are only two people in the race who can be mayor. It's the mayor and myself. And I think what scares me a lot is turning this government over to Muriel Bowser, who has had no experience at all in running this government and doesn't have any understanding of it, and Tommy Wells. We've worked so hard to rebuild this city. And the last 2 times we turned it over to very inexperienced people, it's turned out to be a disaster, and they were voted out of office roundly. And so that's all I appeal to the voters today.
Well, let's
we
address
have an opportunity in this election to elect someone. I don't have a cloud over my head like the mayor does, and I have the experience to run this government and bring this city together. That's what my appeal is.
Let's just address the elephant in the room. Is it possible for a white person to become the mayor of the District of Columbia?
Of course it's possible. You know, it just takes you have to get a majority or more a plurality of the votes. And so, again, someone who, and when you looked at the numbers, I am a candidate who reaches across the city. I have support in Wards 7 and 8. I have support in Wards 2 and 3. And it just takes the belief that I can win and that people will come out and vote for me. I think what's holding me back the most, again, is this whole portrayal that only Muriel can beat the mayor. That's not true.
Well, let's
if
talk.
people come out and vote for me, I can win and be a great mayor for this city.
You just suggested that it could be a real problem if somebody with Muriel Bowser's experience, or in your opinion, lack of experience, becomes the mayor. Given that, if she does win on Tuesday, would you be reluctant to support her and think about possibly supporting her opponent, David Catania?
Well, let me say this. I intend to win on Tuesday. But if I do not win, and I've said this publicly, I will support whoever the Democratic nominee is.
But you just
I would support her. Happens to be the mayor, I will support him because that's my belief always has been to support the Democratic nominee, and will help them when they get to be mayor. But I fully intend to win on Tuesday.
Let me ask you this: when you say that it's either you or Mayor Gray have the only experience really here in the race, Mayor Gray has said that if he is indicted, which seems to be a very real possibility considering the language in the plea deal with Uncle Earl there with the U.S. Attorney, if he is indicted and has to fight against these corruption charges, he will not step down as mayor. He will continue to try to work as mayor and defend himself in U.S. federal court. Is it a good thing, no matter how much experience Mayor Gray has, is it a good thing to have a part-time mayor in Washington, D.C.?
It is not a good thing to have a mayor who is indicted on trial, even with a cloud over his head, which is why I'm asking people to vote for me and not for Mayor Gray. However, you always have to approach this, and I'm a lawyer, and this is how I've been trained. One is innocent till proven guilty. So, you let the trial go forward. But is it a good thing? No. It will make Washington, D.C. again the butt of the late-night talk show jokes, and frankly will erase a lot of the major progress we've made in changing our image during the Williams administration. So I would implore the mayor, if he were to be indicted, to try and settle this as fast as possible and move on.
All right, I got one more question for you. There's another new development in the ongoing saga of the fire department. Woman calls an ambulance. She thinks she's having a stroke. The two paramedics get into a fight in the ambulance, and she decides, I don't feel safe here, and she leaves the ambulance and eventually went to the hospital on her own. What are we going to do about the fire department, and should the Chief Ellerby remain the chief? At what point do we say enough is enough?
Well, were I elected mayor, again, I would start over with the fire department with a new chief and with a restructuring of the department, very similar to what we did back in 1996 with both police and fire departments. Back then, both departments were in chaos, and we brought in new leadership, Chuck Ramsey at the time at the police department, and rebuilt the departments from the ground up. And that's exactly what I would do. Yes, I think the fire department now, the morale, the leadership is really in chaos, and it needs to be completely revamped. And as mayor, that's exactly what I would do.
Councilmember Jack Evans, great having you. Good luck on your prime.